Welcome to DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, so let's get started. All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today we do have a special guest. His name is Buddy Detzel, which, yes, he's my twin brother. Buddy, how are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I've known you for a while. What's been going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, and we will be talking today a lot about running, but also about this idea of mental health. Now, you've been a professional counselor for a really long time and
Yep.
at a company called Authentic Therapy Solutions, yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
So let's get into it, man. You and I were having a conversation the other day, and I thought, hey, you know what'd be really cool is I've been around runners a long time, and you used to be a big time runner, and you
Yep.
still do a lot of weights and some other things. We'll get to that in a minute. But I thought a lot of these folks at times have mental health
Mm.
opportunities or issues or whatever. And sometimes I think that a lot of times we use running as one of those mechanisms to cope, right? And I
Mm.
think it's a good one. I also think it's just one tactic of many different things that people deal with. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some experiences from just my own life and just
Yeah,
how
yeah.
I got into running and how I think it's benefited me. When I moved to I moved out when I was 17 and moved out with my aunt and uncle, and it was a pretty lonely time.
Yeah.
Didn't have any friends. And you're not around your family and things like that. So I really started just, especially around my senior year, the second half of it, I started really getting
Yeah.
my life together. And running became a huge part of that. I'd just go run down the street and run it 2 or 3, 4 miles. And so in some ways, it was a benefit for me, it was healthy just because it gave me an outlet to do something good for myself. So my journey started there. I ran in seventh and eighth grade. I think the off seasons I don't know if you remember Coach Noel and
Yeah.
Coach Arnold Little Elm. And that's when I was really first introduced to running is in the off
Yeah.
season. I didn't do real well in classes. So when you didn't do well, and if you're in athletics, you had to go into off season. And so we ran a lot and I loved it. So that's where I got introduced to it. And then through the years, I started just running around the lake about 9 miles all the time. And my wife finally got me into running marathons.
Your wife did? I don't remember that.
Yeah, she basically said, "Hey, I signed you up for this DRC thing." Oh, there goes somebody. And she signed me up. She goes, I signed you up for a marathon. At the time, this was like in 2000. I
Marathon.
think this was in 2010.
Yeah. You were doing Dallas Running Club, and then she just decided to sign you up for a marathon.
And then I was like, I don't know. That's a lot
Oh
of
my.
money. Yeah. And then I finally just came to peace with it and said, okay, let's give it a shot. So and it was tough, but I didn't get it I didn't get it in 2010, but I hurt myself. But 2011, I was able to run it.
I remember that. And I remember I was watching you, and I wasn't running at the time. I ran in high school and all that kind of stuff. But then I quit for several years. And I remember you running that marathon. And I remember you say it was raining that day. It was the Dallas, what's
Yeah.
now called Run Dallas, but it was the Dallas
Right.
Marathon back then. And you did quite well, but it was really cold and raining. And I remember, yeah,
Yeah.
you tell me more about it because
Yeah,
you ran
it was crazy. 'Cause I went up there and never ran a marathon. It was 37 degrees and it
Well.
was steady rain. And I knew this going in for about a week and a half, but I just kept thinking, man, I hope not. I hope it's not going to rain that day. And it was.
And
I mean,
all day.
even before I got there, it was raining. And that's the thing is 37 degrees is actually pretty nice weather if it's
Yeah.
sunny. When it's raining,
Stuff.
the most difficult time I had was getting warm. I could not get warm for the life of me. Is drenched, stepping in puddles all the time. Yeah. But at the same time, I got a great time. I think it was, what did I get?
3:37.
No, 3:32. Yeah.
Your first one at 3:32?
Yeah, 3:32. So
You beat me. My best one. My best is
you
3:37. That's right. I
You're
did
telling me 3:37. You're the one who did. No, so it was like an 8:04 pace. And it surprised me. I was going for the 7:20 pace.
Yeah.
Or 7:40 or
3:20.
Yeah, 3:20. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get there, but I ended up running.
Your first one, you got a 3:32, dude. That's pretty awesome.
But I contribute that to because it was so cold out. I just wanted to get it done. It was definitely not a fun marathon. It was fun when it ended.
Tell me what happened right after the marathon, and you were looking for things. You're by yourself, and I feel bad
Yeah.
about that now. I look back and I think, man, I wish I was there for you to take you to
Yeah,
your cars.
I was by myself. Yeah. And that's the thing is, luckily when we were done, we were able to go in and get some hot food. I think I changed clothes too, actually. So that was a positive. But it was my first marathon. I was already so sore and it was raining out and I was shivering. I couldn't find my car. It took me like 45 minutes to find my car.
That would have been terrible.
Man, it was, yeah, it was. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to find my car. There's so many cars here. But luckily I did. I survived. But no, yeah, it was fun. And then, but yeah, love running lately. Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of running, mile here, a couple miles there. Do a lot of yoga and CrossFit right now. But yeah,
Do you do that? Do you think that as you talk to folks about that, how important do you think that exercise in general on a consistent basis is that super important? Do you think just as you have
oh
these
yeah,
counseling sessions with folks?
yeah. I talk to people about living in their values, right? And a big one that comes up is health. So
Yeah,
when I think about values, I think more of a quality of being. So I want to be like let's say a connective person. So connection would be a value, or health. You can talk about mental health, physical health, whatever. Yeah, and for me, a big value is exercise because there's not only just good physically for you, which it is, but think about this: when you start to work out, let's just say using weights, you gain strength,
yeah,
and so not only that, when you gain strength mentally, you feel strong because you are. So there is this kind of body mind connection, right? So, if your body feels good, your mind feels good. We know we know a lot of benefits, the resilience that you build toward it, the achievement when you're done with each run or exercise or whatever it is. So yeah, and especially in a society where we live in we sit down a lot.
yeah.
We're not, we're made to move around, move the body.
But I think
Running's,
that something that you mentioned was just feeling accomplished and things like that. There's no time that when I go run a race, and I've run at least 50 half marathons, close to 50 half marathons, 3 full marathons. I've run 20 milers. I've done a lot of different runs, and especially races. So the one thing that I, in the beginning, always thought was, one, I did it for my weight, and I thought that was
yeah,
the longest time. And then I got pretty good at it, and I thought maybe I can do really well. And then from a time standpoint, then I started comparing times because I'm pretty, competitive. And I think that gave me something to be competitive with and just being consistent in running and then just saying, hey, look, I finished this time. I don't know, whatever time you get in the half marathon, full, whatever, then you want to do it again to beat the next time. You know what I mean? And then you
yeah,
feel accomplished. Even if you don't get that time, you still feel accomplished. I do
yeah,
when thinking about, hey, I did the work and I feel good. I feel
yeah,
athletic. I feel healthy, you
yeah.
know?
Absolutely. One thing to speak to what you're saying is that typically it can be hard to start. Sometimes you just got to start. So sometimes I don't want to go work out, but
Yeah.
typically after the workout, I'm so glad I did that. It's weird because you feel accomplished because you feel like you've done something. You've done something healthy for your body. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits, right? Like, and I've taken an approach to running's one way, but it's something a lot of different kinds of workouts. And I'm sure a few of us have too, probably, but many of them at least. Yeah, we all start for different reasons. I started because I was lonely, and then went from there and felt accomplished, was getting to know myself a little more.
Do you
Working out.
ever absolutely. Do you ever talk to people that whenever you're in these sessions, do you ever talk about exercise or anything like that to help them get through some of the things that they get through? And I mean, is that
Everything. Absolutely. Oh, it's a big topic. Again, I deal with a lot of different kinds of clients, but
yeah.
a lot of my clients, they sit down a lot all day on the computers. A lot of they're computer programmers or whatever. They sit down. So yeah, exercises. In some ways, I think that we think we can get away with not exercising. We think we can, but that's the thing is when you talk about depression, anxiety, and we'll just stick with those two, but a lot of the times, if you'll start moving your body, it's going to help you necessarily overcome those things, but it's going to help you when you're moving, you're not so depressed. It's like when you're in your head and you're anxious, do some deep breathing, do some yoga, go for a long run
Yeah.
to help with that because you got to regulate your nervous system. And exercising is a wonderful way to regulate your nervous system.
Oh, it's funny because I used to be heavy and to some degree I still am, not as heavy, but into the trail running community.
Mm.
And these trail runners are not all of them, right? But a lot of these guys and gals have things like they used to do drugs a lot, or they used to do they used to be alcoholics. And what
Right.
they've done is they've substituted running long distances like 100 milers or 50 milers. These guys, like, they might or might not be fast, but they just go out there and do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, they just go out there and be like, I'm just going to go do 100 miles. I think they put in some of the work. To me, it's always sounded like, I'm glad they do that because they substituted something better. But I've seen it also wear off. Okay, now they're back, not necessarily doing drugs or whatever, but they're not doing the 100 milers. They're not doing the work. They're not doing, and so they just fall back in a way.
Yeah. That's a lot to keep up with, I think, first of all, but that's
Like,
to me, I'm sure it is for them too. I've never run 100 miler, so I wouldn't know. Your wife would. I think partly what I'm hearing you talk about is the idea of addiction, like where a lot of these people, you start with, and this is actually pretty common too, they'll substitute one addiction for another. So really thinking about it, maybe the question is, can you run too much? I don't know. Is it just like drinking? Does it affect your family life? Does it affect your relationship with your husband, your wife, your kids,
job.
your job? Yeah. Maybe you look at it in the same way. Has running become kind of that substitute? So really, you got to deal with the addiction brain and learning to really just be more moderate, right? And I don't really try to think in absolutes. I don't think it's right or wrong to drink. I think it's due to moderation if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And same with running. It's like sometimes you're going to have to be, I don't know about it, like a David Goggins kind of deal, but sometimes you've got to be pretty, like, if you're going to run 100 miles, you're going to have to put in the work. So there's a fine line here, and each person is going to be a little different. There's no like easy answer in terms of like.
Well, I think there's another very positive part to this, I think, is that, including myself, the big part of what running does is it gives you a community of people that are doing something similar, right?
Yeah.
So, the positive for some of those folks is that, hey, they're doing some running, and they're doing a lot of running, but they're doing a lot of running with some new friends or with friends.
Yes.
They're getting with groups. And so there's some positives to that, for sure. I've seen so many times that people will go out and do 100 miles 2 or 3 times a year, races, and just keep going on and on. Or I've even seen it with marathoners. They're like, do 5 marathons in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I'm like, eventually you're going to get hurt. Now you're just going to burn out.
That's actually a good question. Burnout. I like the idea of we all yearn to belong. It's a yearning that we have. That's just kind of part of the infrastructure of a human being. And I would say, like, personally, when I did the marathon, when I joined the marathon group back in 2010 for the first time, and I tell my clients this a lot, I use this as an example. So marathon I tried to run was in 2010, and 2 weeks before I got hurt. So we did like a 21 or 22 miler as a last practice run. And about 20 miles into it, I had some sharp pains in my foot. And I knew I was finished. At first, my mindset was like, oh man, I can't believe it. I can't run this marathon anymore. Geez, all this training.
Yeah.
But then I said, hold on, wait. It's not. And I realized it wasn't about the outcome of running the actual marathon. It was disappointing. Oh, it was disappointing. However, it can be disappointing, but as I looked back, I was like, buddy, look at all the people I got to meet and that I still have friendships with today at some level. That sense of belongingness. But not only that, but the different techniques I learned about running, the shoes, the gear to use. And then it's like,
I always thought you never knew what to wear or do, because whenever I started running with you, I was like, dude, why are you wearing those kind of shoes? Or you're like,
I don't remember that, but maybe, right? I know now. Just those kinds of things, right? So it wasn't just an all or nothing. So a lot of times we get into that all or nothing thinking, but trying to create a more flexible mindset. The thing is that, and look, and I think because of how I was able to pivot, and as I retrospected that and saw the gains that I had actually gained from it, besides just the running itself, which was a huge gain. Plus, I'd never run 20 miles before that in my life. So that was another gain. And I told myself, buddy, you
did get hurt.
Yeah, I did get hurt. And it probably took 5 or 6 months for me to.
Yeah, I remember that.
at the same time, again, just creating that flexible mindset and the sense of belonging. The people are really the ones who carried me through that too.
Yeah.
And felt part of the people, felt part of as part of something. And yeah, man, running really, a lot of benefits just in my life. The running itself, because I do too. I like the achievement. I like the goals that I set out for myself to get there. But it's not just about the running, it's about the people. And look, we used to go and sometimes we'd sit near someone's car and drink a couple beers afterwards and talk about it, or go eat a lot.
We have this group today on Thursdays, which I've already said in my podcast before, but we used to run. Now we just meet on Thursdays and either drink a few beers at this trail that's nearby. It's Norbuck Trail. And then like now that it gets night quickly and cold, we just go to a local bar and have some beers and eat and just shoot the shit.
Yeah, man, that's it. That's what it's about right there. And that's how you organically get to meet people. It's funny because clients, let's say I have a lot of single clients or whatever, not a lot, but some. And the way that they go seek out dates and stuff is through these apps.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of hit and miss. Of course, a lot of those become like hookups and stuff, but they're really looking for connection. And again, I'll use this in my own life just to say, look, not that I was looking to date anybody because I wasn't, but it was an opportunity where you find something, an activity like running, and you build organically relationships in that way. And then slowly you just keep showing up. You're going to naturally, what do? We connect. Yeah. We're like in this suffering together.
That's right.
Of running,
That's how Leah and I met.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I remember I was running with a different group than you were, but I remember you talking about her and you introduced me to her, and I remember we all met and were friends and all that. And
yeah, the little story there is I was running my first. By the way, Buddy is the one that pushed me to get into running again back when I was in my late 30s. I was going through a divorce, and he's like, man, because I was overweight quite a bit actually. And you go, you really need to do something, be active. Why don't you start running? And I started to do that. Anyways,
yeah.
So as I was doing all that
stuff,
I was starting to do 5Ks, 10Ks, whatever. Josh got me to, our other brother got me to run a 10K or something. I was like, I'm not ready. He goes, not either, man. Let's go. And I kicked his ass at it. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm ready.
I'm ready. Yeah.
So anyways, I think you encouraged me to join Dallas Running Club, and I did. And I think our first 9 miles, Dallas Running Club, they have, I don't know if it was the spring, I don't know, whatever it was. The first run was 9 miles. And I don't think I've ever run 9 miles, number one.
Yeah.
So we knew that was going to be a struggle. I was struggling. I was running with the 330 group, and then I just dialed it back, and I was just like, I'll wait for the other group. And she came back around and picked me up. It was like, hey, you okay? It's not like we started dating though. We didn't. It took over a year for us to start dating, but still, you never know some of the people you could meet.
Yeah, like you met your wife through the running club.
Yeah,
exactly. And, I think that's the best way to. I think that's the best way to meet people. No, I'm agreeing with you, and I think that's a really good way to meet people is through just finding an activity and committing to it. Something that's social if you want to meet people, right? And a sense of belongingness, right? I've seen that rinse and repeat over and over. If it's through the running deal or whatever.
Well, and hey, you're getting a little bit of exercise as well.
Exactly.
Getting the exercise, you're meeting people, getting to hang out. You're starting to build that life of activity. I believe that activity is key, and consistent activity, whether it's cycling, running, CrossFit, swimming, I don't know, whatever things you might do, keeps your mind focused, keeps you from wandering from the mind. Like just,
and
I'm not saying it solves all your problems, but I think it helps.
It also helps to let go, right? I think it helps just to be able to let go, just of the day, or it did for me.
Yeah, I like that.
Just to be able to okay, it gives me the image of just burning it off, burning the day off. So that's really all my workouts and just, but so it's not just a sense of belongingness, but that's why just joining the group did for me. Because I think part of it was just hard running by myself. It got to a point where I don't think I could get past 15 miles on my own.
It's hard.
Yeah, I just get bored. I think I've once gotten up to 16 miles on my own. Then I just stopped. I was like, I'm done. I'm bored. So I needed to. It's just a long time to be by yourself.
Exactly.
And I know. I like to run. I like to run on my own. Joining the group really definitely helped me just push. So now I have the part of me inwardly that wants to do it, the desire, but also having that external pressure helps too. So having both that internal and external push. So now you get that together. So
Yeah, 100%. And I know that you have been laying low from a running standpoint as of late, although your daughter's big time into running a little bit more in the last couple of years. It's fun to watch. And even your son does a little bit. My son's starting to run a little bit. So I think a lot of times when you do those things, your kids see that, right? And pick up on it. Maybe it's not, you're not pushing them, but you're showing them. Do you think that kind of helps or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The fact that they see that my wife and I work out and I've told them about all the glory days of running and stuff.
Yeah.
My she's done very well in cross country and I think she's going to do track in the spring. And she likes the long distance and because she does well.
Yeah.
And then Ezra too, like today, Ezra went for a couple miles. Simone went for a mile or two.
Nice.
Yeah, they just went on their own. They were incentivized, right? Like I told them they can shorten their time on the TV or computer. They asked me, they came and asked me, hey, if we do this, can you do this? Yeah. Yeah, we negotiated something.
It's always a negotiation.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just, I think too, like them seeing their aunt and uncle running, like, and talking about it on a regular basis.
She follows me on Insta, and she's always seeing and she also, I think, follows me on the DFW Running Talk.
Good.
This thing we're on now. And so she doesn't listen to them, I don't think, but she sees the posts and things.
She sees it. Yeah, exactly. Just a showing. Just the excitement that y'all talk about it with too. Y'all are very consistent. I think it's been a real show and just in terms of them seeing it. And as they've seen it, it's really, I mean, and look, that's what I'm hoping for them is that, at the end of the day, if they can have something, if it's running or just working out, just a value for fitness, that can just run through their lives, on a consistent level. I mean,
that's right.
I
think fitness is key. And I think that even as you progress through the years, you don't do a lot of running anymore. You do more like other stuff. Like I remember you could do this, like you'll start running for a few years, do all these things, and then you'll just switch it up and be like in yoga for years and years. And then you switch it up and then do a little bit of yoga still, but then CrossFit you've done that for a few years now. You're always switching it up.
Yes. Yes. Look, I don't know. I think maybe just that I get bored. It's like this aesthetic rotation or something. So let's try this. What I do running competitively for myself for 6 or 7 years, 8 years, I don't know, a long time. And then, of course, yoga went for 10 years, and CrossFit for 4. Yeah. And now I'm trying to just mix it all up. I'm trying to run more. I want to run more.
It's hard to get back into it when you stop completely like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually I can get a mile or two in right now.
It's fine, dude.
But
I think I've seen you try to kickstart it again. And in my opinion, dude, like when you kickstart it, you're like, all right, we got this 9-mile thing and I'm going to go 8-minute miles. And I'm like, buddy, like you don't start at 8 or 9-minute miles when you're doing your first 9 miles in 5 years.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I've definitely had to hone in my competitiveness because
you're extremely competitive.
Yeah, I am, and we both are really. But I think I know now. I'm almost 50 years old.
Mm-hmm. You are?
Yeah, you too. By the way.
That's true.
But it's like I've honed that in more. I don't think I take my time, build into it. Usually when I'm running now, it's usually after I do weights or something, just to get some cardio in.
So I got a question for you. Like it's I don't know if it's a counseling question or not, but I think it's something that you can think about. Now, a lot of times I've seen this a lot because I've been doing this for a long time, pacer and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things I see a lot is people will run with a certain group. Let's just say it's a 1 hour and 40-minute kind of half marathon.
Okay.
And you'll see this view of, hey, I'm going to try to hit a 140. This person is going to be able to do a 130 one day. You know what I mean? You just know it. You can tell by their athleticism, running with them. But a lot of times they don't get there for a while because same thing with me. It's that we're in our own head. We're like, if I can only just get, I hit a 142, but I got to get a 140. I'm thinking, and I'll tell them, hey, look, you could do a 135. You just have to go out there and push yourself a little bit to do the 135. You've already at 142, and this is your first. What you know what I mean? So a lot of times we have to break down this barrier of how fast we can go because we're in our own mind. I've seen people go from 140 something to one low 120s in a half marathon only because it did take them time, right? But only because they're in their own head, it took them that long. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think partly what I'm hearing is that we get to a certain pace, and then for some reason there's a mental block, and thinking about ways to overcome that. Part of it is that, and I think this is a rigidity that we can create in our minds, where it's 142, gotta get a 140, gotta get a 140. You just got a 142. It's going to take some time to get there, and it maybe takes some kind of reflection on kind of the things you did well and the things, because typically we know what we need to work on. But yeah, and sometimes it's just maybe saying something like it's good enough for now and taking joy in what you've done too, right? Maybe that's the beginning, is taking joy in what you have accomplished in the beginning. Doesn't mean you don't work on getting a lower time or whatever. But yeah, you're right. I think in a lot of ways we can get in our minds or get into our minds.
I mean, I've seen it a lot, dude. It's crazy. And then sometimes it's frustrating. It's, look, you could do this. I remember one time I was running with this woman and she was like, hey, I'm going to stay with you. I said, I'm going to run a 135 and I'm going to do it. And my pace is going to be this. So let's go. She didn't do it because I think that she tried for a minute or two. She's like, oh, screw this. Then she became way faster. She's low 120s now.
Yeah.
But it took her a long time to get out of her own head.
But still, it's good that she at least tried. Because what I'm hearing is since she's trying to stay up with you for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what she gave it a go. I think part of it is just, right, we all have limitations. But if it's just going to take you some more time to get there. And it's going to, I think part of it is, one thing I learned too is that you've really got to be in some good discipline too, right? To get in, I mean, you got to not just show up, but really be honest with yourself about, and can you work on those limitations? And it's a lot of retrospecting about, okay, because I know there's been a lot of times where I would go for, if I was trying to run like, say, maybe a 7:20 pace or something like that, and I'd keep it up for 2 or 3 miles. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I got it for about 2 or 3 miles, and then I've got to slow it down because you burn yourself out. You just start going slow.
Man, I know some runners that they've been doing this for years, is not to get off the subject completely, but they're running 50, 60 miles every single week. There's just one woman I know, she's running 400 miles a month. I'm like, do you know how many miles that is per week?
I'm
That's
sure
a
she
lot.
is. I'm sure she
do the
is.
math, and you just wonder, like, why? What are you doing? So this obsession.
Yeah, I think when you get to those kind of miles, you're going to have to be a little obsessed. I'm not saying that's healthy or unhealthy, but I am saying you have to be a little obsessed.
Think about those folks that, look, I'm not saying David Goggins isn't inspirational a little bit and stuff, but I've seen this a lot. Is a lot of people, mostly men, get so inspired by it. They're going to go and do all these miles. They start for 3 or 4 weeks and then never see them again.
I get the sentiment of David Goggins. There is an inspiration to him.
Sure. I agree.
Able to do what most men and women can't at a high level. I give him that. But I think in some ways and maybe you got to be pretty hardcore. I don't know. But I think you have to be careful, because I call it a dictator within that judgmental self. You get all, I'm going to do it. And then you're calling yourself names and things like that. And like, boy, you got this.
Yeah.
Might want to edit that out. I don't know. But, that to me, I call that the dictator within. I think that creates self-worth issues on down the road. There may be a temporary benefit from it, but actually there's long-term consequences. If you continue to judge yourself and are mean to yourself like that, then that's how you're going to treat yourself. Kind of doing away with your self-worth. Instead, I think and I call it, and as I orienting yourself towards a compassionate self, which I think you can still get a lot done without harming your own self-worth. So instead of saying and calling myself a little bitch or something like that, this is difficult and this is a hard road that I've chosen. And I really want to do it, but I can see that I'm struggling. And that's what I mean by a compassionate self. I think we can get much further and we're able to let it go. And by letting it go, it creates really then we can restart instead of holding on to any of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was good. Is there any kind of tips or tricks that you would say that somebody should take as they move on from this David Goggins mindset?
Again, I think David Goggins has some very intended things, but I think it can be done with a non-judgmental self, with compassion. So I would say the tip is, because orientation is another yearning we have. So we yearn to be oriented. Orient yourself with a compassionate self. Hold things softly so you can let it go. Because I could have just kept holding on to the fact that I didn't run that marathon the first time.
Yeah.
And then probably what would have happened is that I would have just stopped running. But I didn't, and I was able to recoup from that. I started judging myself. I think many of us have that mindset, and I think probably people wouldn't be able to be very relatable to the dictator within, if you will. But it's going to cause you a lot of problems, not just in running, but just in your every day. And is it really worth your own self-worth and giving that up? So tips would be just working on diffusing. You're working on letting go, if you will, noticing without judging. That's how you can start, right? There's a technique called noticing without judging. Notice your thoughts without judging them. Be that third person observer of your thoughts so that you can choose because the thing is, you may not be able to stop your thoughts, like what CBT would say, but you can choose to see your thoughts and let them go. It's like being on a train or a bus. It's like you look out the window and trees and cars, but you're not judging the trees. You're just noticing them. You're just noticing the cars go by. You're not saying, look at that white bark on there, and is that mold on there? Da, 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 da. No, you're just noticing without judging it. And so I would say the same principle here of doing with these few thoughts is noticing them without judging them. And then even saying that word, I notice, because it's a neutral word, right? So I noticed that I was calling myself a little bitch when I noticed that. But
Even if you are being a little bitch, you got to notice it.
You notice it, right? Because that's the thing is we become fused to those thoughts. We become fused and it creates these patterns which then end up just discouraging us from doing the things we want to do. Sometimes it may be those mental blocks of, you ask, why can't I get from a 145 to a 140? The mental block could be that judgmental self, and so you are creating more self-suffering for yourself. So yeah, absolutely trying to let those thoughts, and that's what I mean by letting those thoughts go, is you get to choose what thoughts you want there.
I love that, man. I love that a lot. Super helpful. When you think of something that came to mind was injuries. So you could imagine that, like you were saying, is that you train so long for a marathon or whatever it is that you're training for.
Yeah.
Then you get injured 5 months. You can't run, can't do much of anything. You can imagine like all those thoughts, negativity. Oh man, I did all these things, and then trying to rehab and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any kind of, thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think flexibility, right? Like call it creating a psychologically flexible mindset, because that's the thing is injuries are part of it, right? And what do you do? What do you do when you do get injured? Are you sitting there judging yourself? Are you sitting there wallowing in kind of the judgment of you hurting yourself? Oh, I can't believe I did that. I shouldn't have done that. Look, when you hear words like should, could, would, those are judgment words. You're judging and when you assign them to yourself, you're judging yourself. So it's very difficult to accept something when you're constantly in judgment of yourself. One thing I would say is creating a psychologically flexible mindset means something like, which then creates maybe adaptability. I am getting older and my knees just aren't what they used to be. And now I've injured myself 4 or 5 times and I want to keep working out and I love running, but I just don't know that I can do it the way I've been doing it. So now I've created a compassionate self, not judging myself, letting go of those judgments and being more adaptable to what I can do. There's certainly lots of different things you can do. If it's going to nursing the injury to pivoting to something different, even. It's not going to be so hard on your ankles and your knees. Or combining not just running, but also strength training, especially as you get older. Strengthen those muscles.
I think you're big into strength training as of late.
Yeah, man. So I've just seen so many gains there and just feels so strong, stronger than I've really been in ever. Now, it does take away some flexibility. So I'm used to doing yoga for so long that created such a flexibility and noticing how rigid my body structure was when I was running. Because you just do this same motion when you're running all the time. It's like, I did that for years. And then when I first started yoga, I was like, oh, gosh.
It was rough.
It was rough. No doubt about it, man.
Well, buddy, is there anything that I missed that you think I should have asked you and be like, man, you should have really asked this and let me address that?
Nothing that I can think of. I think this was a good start for us, and I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are after you play around with it and whatever. I thought it went pretty well overall. Not too many tangents. Probably said a lot.
It's all right. I'll cut those out.
Yeah, exactly. Anything you want to say to end or?
No, that's it. But I will just say this, buddy, thanks for coming on. It was really good. He's at Authentic Therapy Solutions. So he counsels people for a living. You've got all your degrees and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So let me just say this. I have my own private practice. I have an MA, a master's degree as a licensed professional counselor here in Dallas. And so I do both. The modalities are acceptance commitment therapy. And then I've been doing a somatic psychology called bioenergetics therapy. Yeah. So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. Definitely. Yeah. And website is at authentictherapysolutions.com.
I'll put all that stuff in the show notes as well. Thanks everyone for tuning in today's DFW Running Talk. Please go and rate and review us. It's certainly going to help us to get into the podcast realm of things and more people listening. So thanks again, buddy, for coming on, and thanks for everybody tuning in. Take care.
All right, Chris, man, you have a great week.
You too, man.
Bye.